Okay, we are live now. Thanks.
Excellent.
Okay, so the agenda of today's hangout is more like this. After Shyam's introduction, I will give a quick information, a 2-minute talk on what we observed as a technology company in the market while selling and servicing different education institutions throughout the globe. So what are the core challenges we faced in the edtech? And I will open up one or two solutions as suggestions also. Then we can talk around that. So after that, Brian, we are expecting Brian to join. So we need expert advice of Brian on this. So then I hope we can wait for another 2 to 3 minutes. Fine.
Yeah, sure.
Perfect.
We can wait for him.
Shyam, any update from him? He given any update?
No. Like he almost make me like he gave me a call in the morning and he told me like he'll join 7:30 today. But he I can't see him online, but he'll come sure.
Okay, great. So Josh, in the meantime, we would like to know more about you and the different activities you have done. So from the profile that I have got from Shyam, you seems to be an excellent personality which our network would like to know from this video. So after this hangout, we will be publishing a detailed blog post along with the recorded video. So we would like to hear more about you, not only us, but all our partners and education institutions in the client base of Fedena and Foradian. So can you tell a little bit about you and your initiatives and your thought on the tech?
So sort of new to the world of higher ed, but coming from a K through 12 sort of setting where I was just a traditional social studies teacher to start out. And then what's nice is sort of this whole new world of internet-based awesomeness is the fact that I was able to spool up a, just an instance of Moodle pretty easily, and just sort of integrated that into my class, just as sort of a hey, this is something I'm interested in. Let's start doing it. And then from there, that sort of spread. I was in a small charter school that spread across the sort of learning community. And then I kind of, hey, I have this tool, now I'm going to have to teach others how to use it. So then I became a technology coach, and then eventually became an IT administrator. Now I'm at Millersville University. So sort of by education, traditional classroom teacher, but just sort of the tools that I started to use extensively became the focus of my education. Yeah, that's sort of a brief personal history. Yeah.
So any specific observation that you have about the EdTech, since you are from the, you can tell us from the viewpoint of a teacher or the IT head of an organization, education institution. So what are the core challenges that you face when someone is coming to you with their product? Or what are the core challenges that you face during implementation or after implementation related to EdTech?
I think the largest part of it is that the opportunities for training end up being these vast chunks and data sort of downloads, when that really is not like a vendor, whoever has maybe one opportunity to really do training, and that might be like an 8-hour day or something, and we take an hour break for lunch, but that's not really the way that you're going to have users really understand how to use a product. So I think that's one of the things, is that a lot of times that is like it's an expensive option for vendors and stuff like that, but and for people, the consumer, to buy, but it ends up not being a very good situation. So I think that's sort of the core challenge there.
Thank you. So Shyam, what I believe is we can start the hangout with its official agenda. So if Brian joins in the middle of the hangout, let him give his views on that. And if he's not able to join, then we will send a video with the details of what we have discussed here, and he can add his viewpoint. What do you think?
Yeah, that's fine. We are waiting. Actually, we are waiting three-person. Paul Swanson, he's a writer, and Mr. Brian Alexander, he's a researcher, speaker, and writer, and Sean Coffey, he's a
Yeah, just
future
joined. Yeah.
strategist. So they'll
Brian,
just.
Brian just joined.
So I think I can start with the topic like yeah, this in the air. Uh, we know that education is change and learning is attitude. Education is a manifesto of survival. Human beings are connected by a single click. So this is a part of collaborative learning. People can have the access to study and share. So this is called collaborative learning. The role of teachers are getting diluted, and the power of internet and the students and the learners are getting increased. So our topic is recent trends and tricks in education. I think this is very relevant in the present day. So I'll introduce our speakers. First, we have Mr. Brian Alexander. He's a futurist, a researcher, like us. He's a speaker, he's a writer, he's a journalist, and he actually author of digital storytelling. And we have Viveka von Rosen. She's an expert, and she's selected as one of the 20 celebrities in social media by Forbes. Where we have Mr. Sean Coffey. Sean Coffey is like he's from Australia, and he's a researcher, strategist, and he's also selected as the influential person from Australia. And we have Mr. Josh Fleming. Josh Fleming actually, like he's a technology expert and or a technology expert from Millersville University, and we are fine with that. And Mr. Paul Swanson, I am expecting he'll join very soon. He's online, and he's a writer, journalist. He's a program director, award-winning author also. So these are the speakers we have, and Mr. Unnikrishnan Kaurath, CEO of our Foradian Technologies, and these are the people. Yeah, it seems Brian Alexander is on online now.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Excellent.
Okay, so before Brian, we are just starting now.
Excellent.
Okay.
Well, I'm
Okay,
really
we are
glad
just starting
to.
now. Actually, Brian is an expert in this topic because so we had an interview session last time. He talked about the recent developments, innovation, everything in education. So we are very happy that we got it. And we are also very happy we have Viveka von Rosen, LinkedIn expert, Josh Fleming, everybody. So I'm just introducing my CEO, Mr. Unnikrishnan Kaurath. He'll discuss some points about what are the things we are looking today and what are the things that education technology is going to rule the world. He'll discuss the rest of the things. Mr. Unni?
Thank you, Shyam, and thank you everyone for joining the discussion. So Fedena is a startup in its growth phase. So what we have observed in the last 5 years of running an edtech software company, we have come across thousands of institutions and thousands of teachers and even more students. So what I am going to share here is that will add value to not only the people who are attending this hangout. So anyone who is going to read about the hangout tomorrow or after this hangout is over. So I am sharing some of the industry observation that we have compiled. So give me 2 minutes. I will not take much time, 2 minutes. Okay. So for this, I will need the help of a screen share. So I'm just sharing my screen.
Looks good.
Okay, so are you able to see the screen?
Yeah.
Fine.
Yeah. Okay, so what I am going to tell is education technology's core problem in the market and suggested solution. Please note that the core problem that I am going to define is from our limited experience. We will not have that much experience like people you are. So you can add what are the other problems that you have observed and possible solutions for the same. So this is the core element. Usually whenever an education technology product or service is presented to a school or college, the school owners, principal or the district they take decision on the purchase of the software products and the service. So the decision on when to purchase, what amount to be paid, all the billing related activities, everything is taken by the school owners in the markets that we have presence, especially from developing nations. Then the next point is, of course, the software will add value to the institution. The parents and students will consume the benefits of these technologies. That is for sure. But then comes the core challenge. The core challenge here is the software is not complete. Software or the product or the service is not complete without the help of a teacher. So teachers are the people who should operate these technologies. But problems arise because teachers are not motivated to work on the technology due to multiple reasons. Hope you can understand. Like school owners and the principal takes the purchasing decision. Parents and students consume the benefits. Of course, the school owners also get the benefit, but teachers are not getting any immediate benefit out of it. And they are the people who should actually work on the product and service. Then when we look at why teachers are not using these products or service, we have come across four reasons. That is what first thing is no time to learn and use, because the time of teachers are very precious. So they have to spend a lot of time in preparing the lesson plan. They have to spend a lot of time in actually guiding the students. So there are a lot of activities for a teacher. So between these activities, whether a teacher will find the time to learn a new product that is selected by the school owner or the district, or whether the teacher will actually use the product by inputting the data, that's the core challenge here. Then about the change management, people are very reluctant to change. So whenever a new technology is introduced in an existing organization, people are reluctant towards the new technology. So this is a psychological kind of issue. Then the next thing is fear of failure. See, when a teacher wants to input a data to a product or software, they have to go through different screens, submit buttons, etc. So anything can go make a failure in that. Suppose if you enter a wrong data, so, but we see that teachers fear to do that. So they fear the failure of using the technology. And another core reason is there is no short-term impact or benefit for the teacher. So in order to actually get the benefit out of a software, you have to wait till one report is generated out of the software, or then you will have to wait till one academic year is over. So these are the four core reasons why that we think that why teachers are not using the product. Of course, you can add your views on this once I finish. And what is the solution for this? So the one solution that what we are thinking as a Floridian team is make teachers the center of marketing, sales, and support of your technology. It is not only selling your product and disappearing, but provide actual value to the teachers instead of the school owners or the parents and the students. Along with that, we should focus on teachers and we should motivate, recognize, and reward the teachers for use of the technology. So other than this solution, one new technology that is going to change all of this is the Internet of Things. So we need new technology that will do the data entry automatically. We don't want teachers to take the attendance of the student, then scan it by some technology, enter into the student information system. We don't want teachers to take printout of the timetables. We want everything to be automated, which is going to happen in the next 10 years. So this is what I have to present to you. And I would welcome Brian to share your view on the same.
Sure. I think you have identified some classic problems in the adoption of technology. The fear of failure is a major one, especially as the level of respect for teachers gets higher and as their professional background gets higher, that they have much more at stake at losing. And they are also usually hired to be experts in a field, not in technology, with the exception of computer science. I think Josh is absolutely right. He mentions in the chat box that he tries to create a narrative where the user is not at fault when they fail. And that's excellent. And I find that usually, generally speaking, the younger the teacher, the more acceptable that is.
Yeah.
I think that the failure is a key problem. I'd also add I mentioned this in the chat, what you're describing, I think, is a brilliant and absolutely correct strategy of targeting teachers, targeting instructors, because they are the ones who are actually at the point of deployment. Unfortunately, that means it's difficult to market to them directly, effectively, because of the administrative layer. You know, the heads of schools, the government administrations if they're public, boards if they're private. And that layer has all kinds of different challenges. So, for example, if they're committed to deploying a national curriculum, they may say technology is blocking that. If they are committed to austerity, they may see that adding technology will just grow costs rather than reduce them. On top of that, administrators are often removed from the classroom experience, separated from pedagogy, and might not appreciate the pedagogical boons of this. So I think the real challenge is if you're going to reach through to the teachers, you've got to deal with this intermediary layer. I could go on, but let me stop for now.
That's great. Or keep going.
Oh, well, I mean, there's one key. Maybe this is a philosophical distinction, but I think maybe I'm focusing too much on word choice. But you had in your first slide this key phrase where you said that teachers operate these technologies, and I think that's only true part of the time. If you're describing, for example, teachers presenting using PowerPoint or Prezi or Keynote, if you're describing teachers presenting with a smartboard, if you're describing teachers using administrative software, then that's true to that extent. The gradebook, for example. But the key thing here, I think, is that students, learners, operate the technologies as much, if not more. If you have a discussion board, the teacher structures it and interacts with it, but it's the students who really contribute. If so many assignments the teachers can give that involve the students making stuff, either making three-dimensional models or searching Google. I mean, and the students, they're co-creators along with the teacher.
Yeah. They're
co-users with the technology. Viveka, do you want to jump in there?
Yeah, I was going to say that's actually a really good point, Brian. We're talking about teachers and administrators, and perhaps it's like the power of the masses. Maybe it's the students that need to be telling not only the teachers and then through the teachers, the administrators, what they need. I know I work with some of the universities here in Denver and in town, CSU, and it's often the students that say, you know, we need to be on LinkedIn. We need a class on LinkedIn. You need to bring in someone on LinkedIn, and you know it's hard. It's hard to get the gatekeepers, the administrators to realize that maybe this is an important thing. So I really like what you said there, Brian. I think it is. It's important, of course, to get past the gatekeepers because they're the ones with the budget, you know, forcing the teachers to do their will. But also, if we get enough excitement in the student arena, maybe they're the ones that could be the advocates for the software programs and the training that they need.
Good point about advocates and advocacy.
Yeah.
Okay, fine.
Josh might have some views on the same, right, Josh?
I think what's nice about smaller institutions, be it higher ed or K through 12, is the sort of the agility there. Where like in my previous setting, a small charter school, is that being able to harness a lot of the stuff on the web where the costs were zero to just get something up. So what's nice is that like if there's a solution that is web-based and free, then really there's a end run around the gatekeepers. And I know as a teacher, I sort of always had the just do it and ask for forgiveness, and if it's awesome, then everyone's gonna be happy with you. But that's not in any institution of any size. I mean, you have to have sustainability come into mind. So it's like I think that there is that good aspect of agility of a teacher or an instructor just like, hey, I read about this, I'm going to use it, I'm going to implement it. But then like when you sort of have that solution being spread out, then that's when maybe those decisions that were made at the classroom level sort of have one perspective, but then as the institution, as it spreads across the institution, other implications come into play.
My heart is with you, Josh. I really like that approach, and as a teacher, that's usually what I would do. And I would run into problems with all kinds of people doing the forgiveness afterwards. I guess I'm not sure, Sham, how this is going to play out in the Indian context, and I know this differs from nation to nation. In the U.S., there's a regulatory framework which can cause a problem, namely that we have very strict privacy laws that can be enforced. So I'm thinking for adult learners of HIPAA, I'm sorry, FIPA, and for minors, what's the law called? You know what I'm talking about, Josh. It's student information. Well, basically, the problem is when you talk to lawyers and when you talk to a lot of administrators, they say that they don't want to. It may be SIPA, but the key thing, the key point of the law is to prevent the spreading of student information around outside of the classroom.
Yeah.
And that information can be a student name, it can be their social security or their identifying number, it can be grades. And legal counsel are really opposed to this, and often IT staff are really focused on this. So, you know, if I'm teaching a class on history, and I say, all right, everybody, I want you to get a blog so you can read about history, the IT department might panic, or the legal counsel might say stop. Because you know you're making these students do all these things. Josh mentions In Bloom. I mean, that's a great example where arguably In Bloom overreached, but it did provoke a massive outrage on the part of another gatekeeper layer, namely parents.
Yeah. Oh, parents.
Yeah, I don't want to say I don't want to stop this conversation in its tracks. I do think reaching out to teachers is exactly the right thing to do. But what I would like to do is make sure that we realize the full what's involved and the challenges that have to be overcome before we even get to the teachers.
Okay, fine.
So, Viveka, now the discussion was revolving around the slide I have presented. Now, we would like to hear some specific things from you related to how LinkedIn can add value to education institutions or the technology companies who are selling or servicing education institution. How the reach can be done or how the benefit can be done. So, you can tell it both from the perspective of a teacher or the education institution members or from the technology company, please.
Absolutely. Yeah, sure, no problem. And I think I've got my book somewhere. Maybe, let's see here. Yeah, so as an example, as a perfect example, I'm helping Dr. Apu Katan. He's got a book out called The Happy Executive, and his approach, which I think is very clever, is to reach out to business owners over here in the U.S., but also in India. So he's reaching out to business owners, basically saying, "Hey, do you want to sponsor this program? And if you sponsor this program, then we're going to provide the training for free to to the different graduate students." And he's really targeting, speaking of students, he's really targeting the disenfranchised in India, women or people who would traditionally not get a university education. And so he's built this program specifically for them. But he's actually targeting, and I think the reason he engaged me is because my business background. So he's actually engaging with, corporations and that kind of thing, which is, completely above and beyond, or maybe not above, but certainly beyond the actual academia. And in that case, he's engaging the corporations, but he's also engaging the students to then come in with these different trainings, even above and beyond the educational, where maybe it's not within the university system, but they're still getting the training, etc. So that's another option, is looking at outside of education, looking at corporate and how can corporate have influence on education. And that's kind of a scary topic in the U.S. because corporate has a lot of influence in a lot of places it probably shouldn't, especially when we talk government. But it's definitely an approach that we're having more success with, and just to get down to strategies and details. It's a matter of joining groups that these individuals are, these people, these targets, these prospects are in, so that we have the opportunity of beginning to engage with them, growing our network proactively with these industry heads, getting them into our network, inviting them to connect, positioning, and it's no problem when you've got a thought leader, like Dr. Pukatan. When you have a thought leader like that, that's pretty easy. But nonetheless, if as like you guys over at Fedena, you're doing a really good job of positioning yourself as thought leaders by bringing other influencers in to share what you're doing. So that, I think, is a key strategy when using LinkedIn and any social media, quite frankly, and any media, quite frankly. It's a key strategy is that positioning, because because people are going to communicate more easily with someone they think is influential than they are just, Joe Blow sales guy off the street. So I think actually you're doing a good job with what you're doing with your blogs and your interviews, etc.
Thank you.
So I'll move to Brian with question. We were already discussing about a substantiate collaborative effort in learning, about using the digitalized way of learning, internet, everything we are using for learning purpose. So how the quality can measure through the collaborative learning? It's for both students and the teachers. How the quality we can measure?
Was that for me?
It's question to Mr. Brian.
Well, I would keep in mind two main parts to that. The first is that we have a long history of assigning students group work and collaborative work, and that history predates the web. And we can rely on that. I mean, there's a well-known set of dynamics. I mean, how you structure a group, how big it has to be, the roles within a group. How, to what extent groups can self-govern, self-organize, to what extent a teacher really needs to help. I mean, there's a whole set of pedagogies and rubrics for assessment based on that. So when we teach collaborative work online, it's important to remember that, honor that tradition, and take advantage of it. And the second is that when we look at online collaboration, then we need to look at what's specific, what's unique to the specific platform we're doing. So, for example, if you're having students work on a wiki, you have to pay careful attention to what wiki software you're using. Does it allow reversion to previous forms? Does it let you identify individual authors? That kind of thing. But also, then you have to pay attention to the specific dynamics of wiki editing. You have to keep an eye out for everything from technical glitches, like multiple edit typing at the same time and forking a document, to when you want to have students grow separate pages of the wiki and spawn off different ones. If, on the other hand, you're having students collaborate using video conferencing, then you have to make sure they have the right bandwidth, that you have to make sure that they are comfortable with sharing their face in public, which they might not be. If you're using a tool like a blog, then you have to show them all the ins and outs of blogging. So I think first we have to remember that we already know how to grade group work. We know how to assess it. We know how to support it. We know where it fails. And second, we need to really pay attention to the specifics of the technology. To the extent that a teacher is interested in training students in a technology, that learning how to use whatever tool it is part of it, then they have to make sure that they devote enough time for that as well. That's a short answer, but I think to a really good question.
Yes, Viveka, thank you for the answer. Viveka, do you have any access for this? Hello?
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, you agree. Okay, fine. Mr. Josh?
Yeah, actually, that's a really good point. And yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, tell. Viveka? Yeah.
Oh.
Proceed.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Brian, you just made me realize, and of course, most of our students, I think, both in India and in the U.S., are way more tech savvy than we are.
Okay.
You think of the little kids who get an iPad and they already know how to manipulate it, as compared to my poor father, who I bought an iPad for him last Christmas, and I've showed him every time I go over there how to use it, and he every time I show him how to watch TV on it, and every time I show him how to get his email, and every time I show him, and he still doesn't get it. And I think that we have to realize with our technology, with our software, I mean, our kids' brains are I think wired differently than ours are, and they adopt it more easily. And I think that brings back the challenge of teachers don't want to look stupid in front of their students, and a lot of times that's one of the inhibiting factors is they don't have, whether it is the training or it's just the comfort, or they haven't had access to the technology, especially in developing countries, and they don't want to look stupid in front of their kids who are sitting on their phones and their iPads and their tablets, their fingers flying, right? So I think one of the things that we need to do, and I love that Josh brought this up right at the very beginning, is we have to reposition that it's not failure, or if it's failure, it's failing forward, and we have to make our professors, our administrators, our gatekeepers, our teachers comfortable with the fact that technology breaks. Heck, we had a hard time getting online this morning. Technology, there's issues. Don't worry. And actually employing the students to become part of the solution. Bringing a student up and helping the student teach or train how to use these different technologies, that's a possibility as well, where you start to get buy-in through your community, whether your community is students, whether your community is business people, whatever that is. So that was a very salient point that Brian made.
Okay, fine.
Well, if I can jump in, I think you identified one. By you, I mean Vivica, and also who's under the handle Fedena? Is that you, Shyam? Okay. Uni. Do you prefer me to call you Uni?
Yes.
Your voice is breaking, Mr. Brian.
Sorry, my connection is kind of.
Okay.
Between Uni was answering my question very nicely in chat about in India about the differences between older people and younger people on using mobile phones, and Vivek was identifying the differences in the U.S. and around the world. And I think a key point is fear and anxiety. That generally speaking, the older people are going to regard these newfangled technologies with a degree of fear, and that goes along with the embarrassment. So if you have, say, an older teacher, say 40 or 50 in the classroom, and you have a 12-year-old, that's an awkward and difficult problem. And I wonder to what extent societies like China, South Korea, where they have a very, very strong elder culture, I wonder to what extent that might make the problem less severe. I'm wondering out loud.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. Josh, do you have any views on that?
Yeah. Good. Yeah.
My classic thing is as far as that is like for the past generation is that looking back, like who taught that, ask I'm 28, but I ask my parent like who taught you how to use a VCR, and like you can't point to a specific time like someone sat me down and like this is a tape, this is how you do it, and you just press play. And I mean, I think the narrative as far as the digital immigrant versus digital native, it is somewhat accurate. I think for me personally, I grew up like I was in elementary school and I had dial-up internet. So I have pre-internet, post-internet. I have pre-iPhone, post-iPhone. So sort of like that point there, living in I live in an interesting time. But I think with that, as far as like a huge challenge is just sort of like if let's say in a classroom, a teacher or instructor is having issues with a piece of technology and having one of their learners come to the front of the room, and to get that working, it's like the sort of traditional roles are being flipped, and that's not a comfortable spot. Hey, like that's awesome, you got it to work, but then like depending on the environment in the room, if is that something safe to do? Is that something we want to encourage? I personally I think the answer would be yes, but if you sort of have an old school paradigm of how education is, I mean that could be a troublesome thing in some rooms.
That's true.
I agree. Well, what you're describing is undermining the authority of a teacher, and personally, I find that excellent. I'm very, as a learner and as a teacher, I believe in altering that power dynamic. But I know that that's hugely challenging. It's very political, and to put it simply, I mean, not every teacher is willing to do that. And I think you've identified a key point, Josh.
No, that's true. Yeah.
Okay, this.
Yeah, I agree. I think we have to realize that the whole dynamic of teaching is different. When I got back into the college classroom, I'd been out of it for 20 years because I'd been in the business world, and I was amazed at the technology. Of course, I had it in my everyday life, but I was absolutely amazed at the technology that our schools had. It blew me away, and I had to have one of the students show me how to use it. And I think you're right. The very way we teach and train is turning on its head. And I love that you said that, Brian. I certainly had one or two professors that did not like when we challenged authority. Lord knows. But that's how we grow. And let's face it, our kids, in many cases, what they learn today is not even going to be applicable by the time they graduate, especially in the worlds of marketing and technology. So yeah, I mean, and so now we've got to get other buy-in. We got to get buy-in from the old teachers and the old professors who do not want the world to change. And another point, that Uni brought up earlier was the ennui, the lack of wanting people to change. And so that's a huge challenge. And I think you're right, and I think Josh is right. The way we teach is also changing, and certainly engaging our younger teachers and our younger professors might be more effective. My 2 cents.
Sometimes I refer to this as the Soviet model of change, where the Soviet Union was in a crisis starting in the 1960s, and everyone in the leadership knew it, and they decided not to change. They decided to wait for a generation to die out and retire. And once that happened, it all cut loose. All the change happened.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, I have another question. Like the role of government, it getting increased every day in the education. Like public private partnership, they are encouraging public private even big sharks are investing in education field. Corporate are also investing a large amount of sum in education field. As a person from corporate field, Viveka, how you are responding to that?
Well, of course, we have more freedom. I mean, the nice thing about corporate America is, well, I don't know if this is a good or a bad thing, and there's an immense amount of freedom, unless you're in legal, financial, or medical, and we kind of talked about HIPAA earlier, and educational. Yeah, we don't have, most of us in corporate America don't have the compliance issues that you have, so it's much easier, I think. And it's in corporate America, getting someone to buy in is getting an executive to buy in, or getting someone in, the CIO or the VP of marketing to buy in. You don't have to necessarily get the company's lawyers to buy in. You don't necessarily even have to get the CEO to buy in. You just need the one person who can make the executive decision. In education, executive decision, that's kind of an oxymoron. There's there's so many layers that you sometimes have to go through in order to get that executive decision. So that's it's one of the reasons I focus more on corporate. You know, if someone comes to me and says, "Hey, I want you to come teach a class on LinkedIn," no problem. But I don't actively prospect universities, mainly for that reason. I mean, it's only now that universities are starting to get social media programs, and I think, oh, what's Mark Schaefer's, I can't remember where he teaches, one of our AV schools anyway. It's like the first time they've even had a master's in social media, which is one of the, I mean, social media has taken over the world, let's face it. Yeah, education just is a little bit behind. So that's one of the main reasons I work in corporate.
Mr. Brian, what is your view on that? Like, a government role in education is getting increased every day. They are promoting public-private partnership, even investment of big corporate in education. What your pick on that?
I think you're absolutely right. Internationally, the trend is for more governments to become more involved. We see this in Europe, for example, where the Bologna process built a continental region where people can trade credit back and forth across countries. So if I took a business class in Denmark and then I transferred to Italy, I can carry those credits across nation lines. In Latin America, many of the nations, especially Brazil and Chile, are spending a lot of money to grow their universities, to improve their quality and build more. In China, the Chinese government is building universities at a rate no one has ever seen before in human history. And I know that in India, the country is interested, well, it may change with your new election, but in growing educational capacity, in part because there's the sense that the global economy is driven by knowledge and that we need to have schools where you generate more knowledgeable citizens. We need to keep doing that. In part because the economy is so competitive and every nation sees itself competing for educational dollars, for attention, for students, for faculty with other nations. So I think we'll just keep seeing more and more government role. On top of this, governments have other needs and beyond the economic that they may want to drive through education. So it may be a cultural need. Countries are interested, governments are interested in, say, either multiculturalism or the opposite, where they want to pursue a specific religious point of view or heighten the power of one ethnicity. And that drives them to more and more activity on part of the governments. On the positive side, this may mean more resources for a great deal of schooling. It also may mean, if these are investments in change and transformation, it may accelerate the pace of change. On the downside, because governments are the sovereigns of a nation, it means it's harder to criticize them. I mean, Viveka was describing having more freedom in the corporate world. Well, it's doing what the government says is kind of the opposite of freedom.
Yeah, exactly.
We may also see nationalism take root and play a role that may distort education. And there's a long history of that in almost every country in the world. So, someone just mentioned here in chat, let's see who this was. Oh, Uni just mentioned the military aspect. Most nations' militaries are deeply involved in training and education. So one side effect we might see is the militarization of education. I think, Shyam, you put your hand on a very, very important trend. What do you guys think, Josh and Viveka?
Okay, Josh, do you
Yeah,
have...
that's scary.
Hello, Josh, do you have any suggestion on this? Government role is getting increased every day.
Well, just for me, just a personal experience at the sort of micro level of, and specifically the American context was, I guess, sort of the legacy of how education is governed as far as at the local level. My previous setting was at a charter school. So specifically, now this is, again, American context, but how charters are approved or renewed in the in the American system, at least in Pennsylvania, how they're approved at the local level is just sort of it's an interesting thing as far as like there's the federal mandates, sort of the intersections of the different layers of government. I got to sort of see that and observe that aspect of it as the school I used to be with went through its closure process. So I think as far as with the role of government, I think it's going to be clarify. It has to be clarified as far as like, hey, is it going to be centralized? Is it going to be decentralized? And which model ultimately is more effective?
Yeah.
Okay. I think it seems everybody knows that the research and development plays a crucial role in education. Every day, the people are spending more money on research activities. So, what kind of research can make or bring good result for the students?
Can you repeat the question?
The research and development activities are increasing every day. Like the money investment on research is getting increased every day. So my question is how the research and development can make the students' performance more better.
Do you want the optimistic or the caustic response? Is that money in any way, shape, or form going actually to students and education? I don't know.
Fine.
Well, I think Viveka is right to mention this as a continuum of possibilities. I mean, there is a tremendous amount of research in neuroscience about how organisms actually learn. And this is very, very recent research over the past decade. Some of it confirms best practices from the classroom. Some of it does not. And a great deal of this is potentially life-changing. So, for example, we get more and more research showing that active learning is far superior to the lecture. And yet, around the world, we love lectures. We do lectures all the time. And so supporting the transition to active learning is very difficult. I mean, that's where the classroom comes from, in part. But that's one area. The other thing to think about is we're beginning to realize more and more about learning from the data generated by students in software. So if students take MOOCs, for example, we're already learning from Harvard that we can learn a great deal about times where they use things, what the major drop-off points are. And as students move through a course management system, as they move through a registration system, Josh is right. We're generating data that can be analyzed, and analytics can possibly tell us a great deal. I'll give you one example. This is a culturally specific example. I was working with an online school, and they did a survey of their website. They had a web page that was Take Classes with Us. It was an intro splash page. And they looked at the whole calendar year and asked, all right, when did we get the most hits on this page? And it surprised them. They thought it might have been the beginning of the school year, which for us is usually August or September. It wasn't. It happened right during two major holidays. In the U.S., Thanksgiving and Christmas. And they were really surprised. They said, that doesn't make sense. I mean, they're holidays. People should be taking time off to, not do work. Well, they figured out that you had lots of families, Josh is right, college students visiting home, families getting together, and then you'd have people who would feel they needed to improve their lives. Maybe they'd be embarrassed at not doing as well as their cousin. Maybe a grandfather would yell at them and say, "What are you doing with your time?" And so this academy had to say, wow, should we rebuild our entire structure so that we can start classes right away with that holiday? In live classes or canned classes. I mean, there's just one example. I'm just trying to. Sorry, let me stop talking because you guys are typing in a lot. I was trying to mention performance with the date of birth. students born a certain month were performing really well. What was the real reason?
That's interesting.
So what happens in India to get extra government service? They put the date of birth in May.
Wow.
Okay, so that they will get one extended year of service in government and they will get that much pension. So all these parents were putting
Oh,
the students' date
Jimmy.
of birth to a specific month. Okay, so these students were actually born 1 year old earlier. So they were elder than all other students.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so they performed better in examination. So these kind of observations can come along with analytics. There are a lot of analytics going. And one of the engineer in India actually hacked into the site of public education and got entire data and analyzed it and found out that actually teachers are not giving real grades, but were trying to pass the students by somehow. So from analytics, all this data can be achieved. So what will be the fake data they are trying to do? The analytics will come out with the real data. That's the advantage.
That sounds like that's a great story. First of all, that's a terrific story. But also, I wonder if an additional layer of this involves having to do quality assurance on data.
Then I am moving to hello.
Lost your audio.
Uh-oh. Yeah. Right now, the only two people I can see that are moving are Brian and myself. There we go.
Okay, fine.
Can't hear Shyam anymore.
Hello, Shyam here. Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes.
Now it can.
Okay, fine. Fine. My next question is to Ms. Viveka. The role of social media. You are LinkedIn expert, and most of the corporates are in LinkedIn. They are using that LinkedIn in a most useful manner. So how an education can be promoted, or education course or technology or a product can be promoted through LinkedIn? Can you please explain with your knowledge?
Sure. I think any product, software, education, software, anything, I think the biggest mistake people make is getting on LinkedIn to sell their product, which is particularly amusing when I tell people, oh, you can't sell anything on LinkedIn, because that's what I do, is teach people how to sell things on LinkedIn. But like with all social media, it's not about getting out there and just saying, buy my stuff, buy my stuff, buy my stuff. I wrote an article for you guys on this. And especially those in the marketing world, they're used to outbound marketing, traditional marketing, and possibly we're used to tuning that out. And so really, LinkedIn, like they say in their mission statement, it's about creating relationships. And I think a lot of people think all they need to do is like put a profile up and the job offers will start rolling in and the prospects will start connecting with them and people will start saying, hey, I want to buy your stuff. What you've got to do, as I mentioned earlier, is create actual relationships with people. It's how you and I met, I believe. Talk to each other. Even if it's texting, even if it's over, messages through LinkedIn, but take it to a phone call if you can, or take it to a chat if you can, and really be a source of information, be a resource. The more you can be a resource to people, I give all my stuff away for free. They hire me because they don't want to actually do it themselves. But if you could be a resource for people, whether it's through your software, technology, or whatever you're trying to sell, you've got a much better chance of developing that know, like, and trust. I think I quote Bob Berg every time I talk or every time I'm interviewed, but he says all things being equal, people do business with people and refer people they know, like, and trust. And so that's really where LinkedIn can be effective, is creating that sense of know, like, and trust, creating that sense of expertise, creating opportunities for engagement with other people. And it's it's not easy, it's not hard, but you have to have a strategy in place and you need to work at it a little bit every day. I think one of the big disservices that my industry did when we first started out, 10 years ago or whatever, we made it seem like social media was the be all and end all things born and died and lived and breathed and were sourced from social media, and that all you had to do is basically have a social media account, whether it was on LinkedIn, Twitter, or Facebook, and your life would be transformed, and all that get rich quick magical thinking stuff. And it's not, it's work. In my opinion, though, especially for our industry, especially for software and for education, for business to business, for government even, LinkedIn makes that communication and that engagement easier. It shows you, it shows you how you know people if you're first, second, or third level connection. It shows you the best ways to engage with them, whether it's a message or an introduction, or in mail if you have to. So there are a lot of tools that we have, but it's still work, and that's where people fail on LinkedIn is they don't do the work. They don't make the effort. They don't do the work. And I think really that's what's key.
And most of the time, like the people who are investing more money in LinkedIn AdSense is not reaching to the prospective customers, or it's like a beating around the bush. So how it's going means how we can find out our prospective customer, even though we can't make out their interest by seeing their profile and all. How we can reach to them directly?
Sure. So, well, I actually use a couple different tools as well as LinkedIn. They're third-party apps, but on LinkedIn itself, I think one thing people don't realize is their advanced search, the ability to really dial down to exactly who you're trying to connect with through title, through company, through school, through location. So finding those people, first of all. When you have a free account, you're only allowed to see 100 people, but quite frankly, I think 100 people, if you have 100 hot prospects and you can't close a deal, whatever that deal is, with 10% of them, you probably need a class in better business practices. But you can really dial down and get exactly the right people to show up in a search. And then once you've done that, you can actually save those searches, and LinkedIn will send you leads every week. It'll show you the new people who fall into that specific search dynamic. And then again, it's up to you. If they're a first level connection, you just send them a message. If they're a second level connection, you get asked to get introduced to them. You get 5 introductions with a free account, 15 and up with a paid account. You can certainly invite them to connect through a group. You can join a group they're in, which increases your visibility. It allows you to send messages without having to pay for it, and it allows you to build that engagement. You can then tag your network, so you can segment your network according to what kind of prospect they are for you, and then you can reach out to them very easily, just once or twice a month. More than that, you start to look like a stalker. But once or twice a month, gently reaching out, letting them know things that they're interested in. And then of course you sign with your signature and remind them what you do for a living. But if I'm trying to create a group of teachers as my prospect list, I would do an advanced search, seek for them under teacher, facilitator, professor, and then I could choose a certain school, or I could choose a certain city if I wanted to focus that even more. And then I would reach out to them through an introduction or a connection or a message, and invite them to connect. I would tag them appropriately. So professor, New York City, education or something like that. And then once or twice a month, I would find something that I think they would be interested in. LinkedIn has a news feed called Pulse. I just find an article I think they'd be interested in, the traffic in New York City, or it has nothing to do with LinkedIn, but it's just me going, hey, I just found this really cool article, thought you might be interested in it, wondering if this affects you at all where you live. Oh, and by the way, just in case you forgot who I am, this is who I am and this is what I do, and if you ever have need of LinkedIn, just let me know. But it's not a hard sell. It's never a hard sell. And that's really, it's kind of it's a very, very simple strategy, but you have to actually do it. And that's where I don't get it. I mean, it's so hard to connect with prospects. It's so hard to build those relationships. Or referrals. Get referrals from your existing clients. You know, it's and this is an easy process, but people are just, they don't know how to do it, or they're lazy, one or the other.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Shyam, I think thanks a lot, Viveka. Shyam, I think our 1 hour
That's all.
time is over, so we can wind up
If
the
you can hear
session.
me.
Yeah.
we can. I can hear you. For Josh, I have one question to you. Like, as a Millersville
Oh,
University, as from Millersville University, like, uh, your university is a national award-winning university last time. So, how the innovations and technology will, how the students are engaging in our education system by using this innovation, I mean, or internet or technology, how these students are getting use of this.
Pretty broad question, and I know we're
yeah.
sort of over time, but you know, I'm pretty new in this position actually. Uh, just been on board for about a month, so I can't really comment too much about you know, what we're doing here at the university. Um, so I'm actually just gonna say, hey, ask me in a year.
Okay, okay, fine. I think,
Shyam, can I tell something? Yeah.
yeah, sure.
So what will happen after this hangout is there are a lot of great information being shared here. So we will make a write-up of all the information we have collected and we are going to publish it through our PR network. So as a closing note, if you can share something that can add value to our reader that you want to see in the post about this hangout, please share and we will wind up with that. That's what the plan is. So starting from Brian, if you have 1 minute to add something that will add value to the our readers, great, please.
It should be like a concluding speech.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's important to realize that the major reason that people go through education now is economic. That around the world, people go for job skills and for job positioning. And that's a huge, huge driver. And that wasn't true for all nations just 50 years ago. Um, at the same time, it's important to realize that there are non-economic benefits,
No.
and we need to really, really pay attention to them, from self-actualization to self-esteem, to knowledge for its own sake, and cultural and national goods.
Josh,
And the what's this blurb to be about? I'm sorry.
no, you have got any concluding thing to tell? Some
Concluding
short.
thoughts.
Yeah.
I'd like to just go back to the idea of fear. Is that,
Okay.
you know, the biggest aspect of adoption is the fear of failure, and the way to sort of, I think the best thing of implementation is to have the idea that if you fail, it's okay, and that there is someone friendly that's going to come in and, hey, we'll work this together. And I
Okay.
think that's where the success or failure of implementation lies.
Correct. Thank you. Vivek, any closing notes?
Actually, to build on that, I think it's really important, especially for the software developers who are wanting to reach out to the educational arena. Um, let people try your stuff on for free. There's nothing like trying something on to see what, if it works or not. That's how people reach me. That's how I get involved with these software companies, is they go, hey, you know, here it is for free. Try it, see if you like it, and then give them exemplary customer service, above and beyond crazy, give your time away customer service to help those teachers, to help those students, to help those administrators feel comfortable, so that fear is alleviated. And I think that's where the biggest mistake is. I can't tell you how many people each day say, will you try our software? And they either want to charge me for it, or they just give me this great program and I don't have the time to figure it out. But the ones who sit down with me and are very persistent in getting me to block off an hour of my time so I stay with them, they're the ones I'm marketing for them for free because I love their products to this day. So I think alleviating fear, making people feel comfortable with your product, letting them try it out, I think that's key, at least in my industry.
Great, thank you. Sham, we can conclude the hangout again.
Yeah, sure. Like, we are so happy that you shared your experiment and experience with us regarding the topic, and we are so glad to hear. We are also planning so many things in the coming future, and thank you all of them. Brian Alexander, you did a great job for us. Josh Fleming, Viveka, we are expecting more
Yeah.
help from you. We are seriously looking on LinkedIn, and we are planning so many things in LinkedIn. We are expecting more help from you, and we are expecting the support of all of
You
you in
got
the
it.
coming future. And no need to mention him. Thank you a lot.
Thanks a lot. So we'll have one more talk very soon. Thank
Absolutely.
you. Thank you.
Thank you.
This was a lot of fun. Thank you all
Yeah.
very much.
Bye.
Thanks,
Okay, bye.
everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.